Some comments from Steph Curry have emerged. Steph Curry, as we know, shoot the lights out from three-point range. That's interesting. Her release time is identical to mine.
And then her just confidence. You can't help but watch when she plays, where she's shooting from, the range, the confidence.
I thought Paige Bueckers was a star. I thought Paige Bueckers was the secondary great white hope. It didn't matter who Caitlin Clark was playing, and the game would be headline news. That is what's missing in women's college basketball this season.
Just when the battle between Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers was heating up, the NBA's greatest shooter of all time dropped a bombshell. Steph Curry stepped into the spotlight and publicly praised Caitlin Clark in a way no one expected.
I think Caitlin Clark is half Steph Curry, other half Larry Bird. When it comes to motion, when it comes to moving the needle, we all know the one that does that in women's sports, and that is Caitlin Clark. She continues to set ridiculous numbers all over the place.
And if that wasn't enough, Luca Doncic lit a firestorm of controversy by casually dismissing Paige Bueckers as just okay, while backing Caitlin as the future of women's basketball.
They said Paige and Luca are the same, and Luca doesn't even watch her. Luca said he doesn't care about Paige.
Who's your favorite women's basketball player?
Caitlin Clark.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't like Paige Bueckers?
No, she's okay. I didn't see her playing the women's NBA, so.
She just got drafted.
#1.
Dallas.
Luca Doncic straight away throwing shade at Paige Bueckers.
No sugarcoating, no political answers, just raw, unfiltered truth from two of the NBA's biggest stars. But what exactly did Curry say that has fans and analysts rethinking everything about this so-called rivalry? Why is the NBA siding so heavily with Caitlin Clark, and what does this mean for Paige's future in Dallas? The internet is divided, but the facts, they're louder than the hype. Let's break down the full story and show you why Caitlin Clark just silenced every doubter in the loudest way possible.
I saw somebody break down the release time, which is pretty much identical to mine.
It started like any other buzzy day in the world of college and pro basketball drama. Paige Bueckers was trending again, with fans still clinging to the narrative that she could rival Caitlin Clark. But then, out of nowhere, came a clip that no one saw coming. Steph Curry, cool and calculated as always, on camera, praising Caitlin Clark's style, her fearlessness, and most shockingly, calling her a generational shooter.
Been very complimentary in the past about Caitlin Clark. She's on the verge of breaking the scoring record. I mean, do you see any comparisons in the way like she shoots to your people compared to the way you shoot? Do you see anything?
I saw somebody break down the release time, which is pretty much identical to mine. And then her just confidence. You can't help but watch when she plays, where she's shooting from, the range, the confidence, the flair. Like, she's a performer. It's crazy though, just because her shot it's like that. It's at that level. But if you really watch, like her floor game is as impressive. So it's kind of the total package. And her being the friends are breaking that record, and the amount of attention that she has gained over the course of these last couple of years. Every building she goes into, there's a different energy. Like, it's great for her, great for women's basketball.
He didn't mention Paige, not once. That silence spoke volumes. The video quickly went viral, racking up views as fans and analysts zeroed in on the underlying message. If Steph Curry is endorsing Clark, it's no longer a debate. The GOAT of long-range shooting was effectively passing the torch, not to Paige, but directly to Caitlin. And that's not even the half of it.
The second chapter of the Caitlin Clark era in the WNBA will commence soon. Clark established herself as a superstar in her rookie season with the Indiana Fever and will now lead a championship hopeful team into year 2. However, before the season begins, Clark was involved in a major news headline that featured a 6-figure price tag. Clark's edition of the 2024 Piani Prism WNBA Throwback Signatures Golden Vinyl card has been officially sold.
Curry didn't just compliment Caitlin's shot selection or range, he went deeper. He praised her court vision, her basketball IQ, and her leadership under pressure. For Steph, this wasn't a casual shout-out. It was a public endorsement of who he sees as the next big force in basketball, someone who isn't just winning games, but changing the narrative around women's sports. His words immediately made headlines as sports commentators began questioning whether the Paige versus Caitlyn comparison was ever valid in the first place.
And this is from Bleacher Report, ranking the rookies by a WNBA expert. This is just lying.
Their season, she's been flirting with 4 assists. And this past season, she also led the nation in assists with 4.6 assists.
So Paige Bueckers led the nation in assists with 4.6 assists per game. She was 63rd. So when Caitlin Clark was still in college, and Caitlin was 2 entire assists ahead of second place. And Georgia Amore was 4th.
Not only do I not think Paige is going to move the needle, I don't think she's going to flutter it. I don't think it's going to vibrate slightly.
But it didn't stop there. Shortly after Curry's comments went viral, Luca Doncic was asked during a podcast who he thought was more NBA ready between the two women. Luca didn't hesitate. Caitlin Clark, he said bluntly. She plays with swag. She plays with fire. When asked about Paige, Luca shrugged and said, "She's all right," before quickly steering the conversation back to Clark's dominance.
Let's get to Luca Doncic. He was asked about his favorite women's basketball player. Listen to this. Who's your favorite women's basketball player? Caitlin Clark. You don't like Paige Bueckers? Quote, shrugs. She's okay. Haven't seen her play in the WNBA, so, and when he sees her play in the WNBA, he won't be that impressed either.
That single moment shattered the illusion of a tight rivalry and instead painted a very clear picture of where the elite players stand. And the numbers back it up. Caitlin Clark has been rewriting the record books. Fastest to reach 3,000 points, highest three-point shooting efficiency in NCAA women's basketball, and multiple triple-doubles against top-ranked teams.
Basically, Wings GM conveys key difference in Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark's rookie season. He said the one thing when you talk about last season is that Paige won't have the benefit that Caitlin did. And this is nothing against Caitlin, but we had an Olympic break last year. So you got to see some players take a month-long break, essentially. And those rookies were coming off a grueling season in the collegiate game. They got a break and got to reset and finish strong. This draft class, which includes Paige, is not going to have that luxury. We don't have a big break where they can almost catch a second win and then push to the finish line in the second half of the season, he continued. So we have to watch this rookie class around the league about load management. It's not just our rookies. We're all going to be tuned in to load management, especially these rookies that played long into their collegiate season. I didn't really see any of the benefit that Caitlin Clark got coming into the season.
Meanwhile, Paige, despite her talent, has battled injuries and struggled to maintain consistent momentum. NBA stars aren't blind to this. They're watching the stats, the highlights, the impact, and they've spoken without filters. Behind the scenes, the shift in narrative was even more brutal. After Steph's praise hit social media, ESPN insiders reported a noticeable dip in media coverage for Paige Bueckers.
2020-21 season, when she said Paige led the NCAA in assists, it was Aleta and Caitlin was 3rd with 7.8 assists per game. Paige averaged 5 and I think she was 15th. If you look at all these seasons, first season Paige was 15th. The second season Paige played, Caitlin Clark led the NCAA in assists with 8 assists per game. Paige did not play in 22-23, and in 23-24, Caitlin Clark is 2.1 entire assists ahead of Georgia Amore, who she said led NCAA in assists.
Editors started prioritizing Caitlin Clark's highlights, while Paige's name quietly slipped down the trending lists. Every move Caitlin made, whether it was a no-look pass, a logo three-pointer, or just her fierce sideline energy, was dissected and celebrated across sports media platforms.
In her final year at Virginia Tech, she averaged 6.8 assists per game and then led the nation.
Not only is it eradicating Caitlin Clark, it's eradicating Serena Sundell. Like if you look at Paige Bueckers' seasons, or if you look at last season, Serena Sundell averaged 0.4 assists more than Georgia Amore, but nearly 3 assists more than Paige Bueckers.
There's another trading card that sold for an absurd amount of money. You'd have to pay $244,000 to have gotten that card.
It was no longer about a rivalry. It had become a showcase. And Caitlin was the undisputed star. The real kicker came during the most anticipated showdown. Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers head-to-head. All the hype, all the talk. And then Caitlin did what she always does under pressure. She delivered. She didn't just win, she controlled the pace, dominated both ends of the floor, and outshined Paige at every turn.
We want to see Caitlin Clark and we want to see Paige Bueckers.
Caitlin scored more points per game, but Paige was more efficient.
Paige Bueckers has had one of the best careers in the history of women's college basketball. On paper, you could make the case that Paige Bueckers has better college career than Caitlin Clark. But this is the world of television, where you're not judged based on your accomplishments. You're not judged based on your stats. You're judged based on your drawing power. And looking at these ratings for the women's tournament, it is abundantly clear Paige Bueckers might be a star, but she's not a draw.
These two were the topic of conversation. Who's the better player?
She's not nearly the player that Caitlin Clark is.
You know, she's been really disappointing this whole tournament.
We're not creating this rivalry. We're not saying they hate each other, but they are two of the best in the game right now.
Even veteran analysts who once hedged their bets now admitted on air that Paige looked overwhelmed. One even said, it felt like varsity versus junior varsity tonight. Caitlin's performance didn't go unnoticed in the NBA either. NBA veterans started retweeting clips of her signature deep threes with captions like, "That's Steph range," and "Somebody give her a jersey already."
A reputable basketball publication, Bleacher Report, stating that Paige Bueckers led the nation in assists twice in her college career. She has been top 15 once. She was 63rd last year when she led the nation assists. Now, Georgia Amor, who had more assists than Paige, did not lead the nation assists as well. It is literally the media just lying. They are literally just lying.
When Draymond Green reposted her highlights on his story with the words "Hooper for real," the message was clear. Caitlin wasn't just playing for women's basketball recognition. She was being welcomed into the elite club of ballers, period. Not because she demanded it, but because her game spoke louder than any label ever could.
Why hasn't Middle America given Paige Bueckers the Caitlin Clark treatment?
Paige Bueckers is woke as hell. She's going to come into the league and join the WNBA activism. She's probably not going to be embraced over that because we are sick of it.
Meanwhile, Paige remained silent. No Instagram posts, no cryptic tweets, nothing. Her fan base, which once matched Caitlin's in volume and loyalty, grew eerily quiet. And in their silence, Caitlin's name kept soaring. The endorsements started rolling in. Brands chasing her, not just because she was a winner, but because she was magnetic, relatable, fierce, the kind of athlete who changes everything around her. Steph Curry's praise was just the spark. What followed was a full-blown wildfire of admiration, influence, and momentum that no one, not even her doubters, could contain.
Newly drafted Dallas Wings guard Paige Bueckers will make her preseason debut on May 2nd against the Aces. I'm very interested to see the rating on that.
The momentum surrounding Caitlin Clark right now is unlike anything women's college basketball has seen in years. She's not just trending, she's transforming the game in real time. Everywhere she goes, arenas sell out. Fans aren't simply watching, they're rallying behind her like she's already an icon. Signs, jerseys, chants, every bit of it screams that Caitlin isn't just a star, she's the moment.
So basically, we know Natalie Esquire, a serial hater when it comes to the Caitlin Clark fan base. She's pretty much a driving force behind a lot of the drama that take place in the media.
You have other people like Sabria Whitaker. You have so many people out there, and people like this, the committee, which is, you know, a group of really, really strong women's basketball fans on Twitter. They have influence. Dawn Staley flew 2 members of the committee to South Carolina's opening game in Paris, okay?
So they're calling old guard WNBA fans the committee. These are the same people that is pushing race narratives. These are the same people that is bashing Caitlin Clark. These are the people she's talking about.
And what makes this more remarkable is that she's not just writing hype, she's delivering on it. Her step-back threes, full-court assists, and fearless leadership aren't just highlights, they're statements. Every possession becomes a chance to witness greatness. Her game is smooth, instinctive, and calculated, and even the best defenders are struggling to keep up.
I got to be with those women up close and personal. I was in practices, I was at shoot-arounds, I was in the locker room.
That's a great experience, though. So you was able to get a real close view of what it was like to be a WNBA player at that time.
Yeah, and it was like not glamorous at all. But I was a kid, so to me, I thought it was like the most amazing thing ever. Right. But when you have conversations with like Taj and stuff like that, they're like, "That was a mess. It was ghetto. It was bad. It was a mess." Yeah. But we still talk about like how the league was like 6-7 years ago. We have like things like, I can't believe we was doing this. We was sharing rooms.
No, we was definitely sharing rooms. I was just telling Natalie and Tom, I was like, bro, we really was sharing rooms and you was talking in your sleep before games. Like you literally even know Nat, you was talking in your sleep.
You gotta leave room to get on FaceTime with their boo.
You gotta leave out the room.
Sitting in the lobby at midnight.
Paige Bueckers, once the darling of the sport, is now finding herself caught in Caitlin's rearview mirror. While Paige still has talent, the gap in dominance has grown too wide to ignore.
On Monday, the league announced that 4 preseason games will run on national television. The first time in league history that multiple exhibition games will air nationally. Indiana Fever's exhibition against the Brazilian national team on May 4th would air on ESPN. Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and the rest of the Fever will also be on national television on May 3rd.
What's even more shocking is how the media narrative has shifted. Not long ago, many questioned whether Caitlin could handle the pressure, whether she could keep performing at this level week after week. But now, even her harshest critics are being forced to admit, Caitlin Clark is not a fluke. She's a phenom, a once-in-a-generation player who's not just living up to expectations, she's obliterating them.
The hate in Natalie Esquire heart is so strong, LOL. She said this in 4 different ways for absolutely no reason. NBC, at Indiana Fever, we don't want her covering America's team. Natalie Esquire said only one is super problematic, emo, in my experience, and based on listening to what has been said and reported on all year, it's a common theme. I only get harassed to endure racism, receive threatening emails, DMs from one fan base. So yes, it's one. It can apply in all of sports, but there is a notable difference in one fan base with respect to the W. This tweet said, no, it's one. It's not allegedly. This is my experience, and it only comes from a specific set of fans. So yes, for me, it's one fan base. You've already heard a player say in her career she's never experienced anything like this. Stop trying to violate our experience.
And then there's Steph Curry. When one of the greatest shooters in NBA history singles you out and praises your court presence, your decision-making, your shot selection, that's no small feat. That's validation from the very top, and it sends a clear message. Caitlin Clark isn't just good for a women's player. She's great, period, and her journey is far from over.
All they can think to do is infer, insinuate racism. Just claim racism. Ratings explode.
A lot of Caitlin Clark fans, and so many of them are not white. It's just insulting to assume that that's the case to the people that aren't white, to the Black Americans that do love Caitlin Clark.
Eaton Thomas contrasts how white Americans view the two based on stark differences in speaking out against racial injustice. Quote, perhaps it's because, unlike Clark, Bueckers has always been outspoken about issues off the court, Thomas wrote in a Guardian article. At the 2021 ESPYs, Bueckers was named the College Athlete of the Year. She used her acceptance speech to celebrate and honor Black women in particular. In Bueckers' famous ESPYs speech, she used her platform to recognize those who didn't get the same recognition as her, specifically highlighting Black women. While Black America cheered Bueckers, it seemed like mainstream white America, a demographic once viewed her as, in her words, a media darling, weren't singling out her praises. Is it a coincidence, or maybe because her injuries have made people forget her greatness as an athlete? But she's back from injury, and now why aren't people focused on Bueckers as they were Clark last year when she was tearing up college basketball? Maybe if Bueckers had delivered a more vanilla ESPY speech, things would be different. This is a completely embarrassing article. Caitlin Clark is a worldwide phenomenon whose playing style has drawn a level of hype that hasn't been seen in basketball in a decade.
And just like that, the spotlight only burns brighter for Caitlin Clark. With Steph Curry's stamp of approval and fans rallying behind every move she makes, she's redefining what it means to be a superstar in women's basketball. The rivalry with Paige Bueckers? It's fueling a fire the sport hasn't seen in decades.
There's an Angel Reese card out there right now that's on eBay that somebody has a ridiculous price on, and it's just been sitting there forever. It's collecting dust.
The light that I have now as a white woman who leads a black-led sport and celebrated here, I want to show a light on black women. They don't get the media coverage that they deserve. They've given so much to the sport and the community and society as a whole, and their value is undeniable. The WNBA, last season, the postseason awards, 80% of the winners were black, but they got half the coverage as the white athletes. So I think it's time for change. Sports media holds the key to storylines. Sports media and sponsors tell us who is valuable, and you have told the world that I matter today, and everyone who voted, thank you. But I think we should use this power together to also celebrate black women.
Don't you realize these black girls all paved the road that she's traveling, that these black women built the WNBA, that these black women carried women's basketball, and now all the racists love women's basketball because they're racist and they have Caitlin Clark. Just not true.
But while others are just trying to keep up, Caitlin is rewriting history in real time. The question isn't whether she'll shine in the pros. It's how bright the league can handle her light. Because if this is just the beginning, everyone else better catch up fast.